Can you believe it? Here I am, starving, and you're spending ages chatting on your PC? What a life. Blake barged into my room, not bothering to hide his surliness as he questioned me in a low voice. Right now, I'm in the middle of a video conference call. With no effect, I looked at Blake, hoping he'd understand I can't let our client hear this conversation. I'm telling you I'm hungry. Why are you ignoring me? Stop wasting time with useless talk and get to it. In a panic, I tried to mute my mic, but Blake is already stomping over. Hey, don't you dare ignore me like that. A sharp pain shoots through my foot. Blake had kicked my right foot, still putting weight on it. I had just recently broken it. Even with the cast on, Blake didn't hesitate to strike my foot. With a face twisted in distaste, he points toward the kitchen. The one who finally spoke to Blake, who only cared about his own meal, was me. My name is Samantha. I work as a company employee. I met Blake through work when I was 26 and we started dating. He was 10 years my senior, but I was drawn to his mature, calm demeanor and his kind nature. During our relationship, Blake was always gentle. We hardly ever argued. Without any major issues, we got married after 2 years of dating. On our wedding day, I felt what could only be described as the happiest moment of my life. But the very next day, Blake's attitude changed completely. I had to work late, so I rushed home after a quick stop at the supermarket. Blake had already returned and was relaxing on the sofa, watching TV. I'm home. Oh, you're already back, Blake. I got groceries, so I'll start cooking right away. As I greeted him, he turned to me with an annoyed expression. You're late. You're starting now? I'm starving over here. Hurry up. I was stunned. This was nothing like the Blake I knew. We had been living together even before marriage, and on days when I had to work late and Blake got home early, he would naturally prepare dinner. He always responded to my thanks with a gentle smile, saying, It's only natural since we both work. But the man in front of me now was like a stranger. I remembered texting him earlier about working late. He had seen the message but didn't reply. Before, he would have responded with, I can leave on time today, so I'll get dinner ready. Or, I might be late too. Should we order delivery or eat out? Feeling doubtful about Blake's sudden change, I tried to ask him gently, keeping my emotions in check. Blake, you seem different today. Is something wrong? At this, Blake made an obviously annoyed face and said something unbelievable. Now that we're married, I don't need to be nice to you anymore. What? I was dumbfounded and couldn't comprehend his words. Seeing me like this, Blake burst out laughing. That's right. It was nice before we weren't married yet. Haha. But now that we're married, you're mine. From today, you are my slave. That's decided. What are you talking about? I was utterly shocked by Blake's words. Oh, and you haven't done the laundry or cleaning yet. Of course, you should do all of that. And make dinner within 20 minutes. Hey, don't just stand there. Get moving. Shouting this, Blake turned back to the TV, ignoring me completely. With my head in a whirl, I somehow managed to do the housework. I was hungry after work too, so I tried to calm down while cooking. But he complained about my cooking, saying it was bland and awful. When I ran the washing machine, he got angry about how I folded the clothes. When I finally got a moment to rest, he demanded a massage from me. Exhausted in body and spirit, I couldn't refuse his domineering attitude and did as he ordered. Rather than anger at his terrible behavior, I was more bewildered by his drastic change. Even while I massaged him, he complained, You're too weak, clumsy. The next day and the day after, Blake treated me like a slave. I hoped he might return to the kind Blake I knew, but there was no sign of that. Unable to bear Blake's treatment any longer, I naturally considered divorce. However, my parents had died in an accident when I started working, and I had no other relatives to rely on. I had sold my family home when we got married. We didn't have a wedding, but we had spent a significant amount on the move and appliances. If I left right now, I'd have to live in a hotel until I found a place, and I had no idea how much it would cost. So I decided to secretly prepare for divorce, planning to confront him once I had a new place to live. Even then, Blake continued to hurl abuse at me daily. No matter what I did, he yelled at me, always saying, "I'm guiding an inferior wife. It's for your sake." But all I felt was disgust. Once, when Blake came home late without any contact, I had already eaten dinner and taken a shower. He said upon returning, "Why did you eat without me? A woman should wait for her man. Samantha, you're really the worst wife." He hurled various sarcastic remarks at me. His cruel words almost made me explode, but I desperately held back, planning to leave as soon as I was ready. Just until I find a new place. I kept telling myself like a mantra. This was a situation for a while. That day from the morning, I was met with Blake yelling, "Hey, this shirt is wrinkled. Can't you even iron properly?" I had fallen asleep exhausted, forgetting to iron. Hating myself for letting Blake get the better of me, I quickly ironed the shirt and prepared to go to work. While I opened the front door, it was raining outside. Our apartment is on the second floor, so I used the stairs. That day, as I walked the familiar path, I slipped and fell on the wet stairs. My body made dull sounds as I tumbled down the ground to the first floor. Overwhelmed by the pain in my leg, I writhed in agony. It was an intense pain I had never experienced before, and I knew something was seriously wrong. Then, I saw Blake coming out of the entrance, so I called out to him for help. "Blake, I fell and hurt my leg. I can't move. It hurts so much." Blake frowned when he saw me. "I might be late for work because I waited for your ironing. You'll be fine. I'm going to work." He said this and passed by me with a heavy sigh. "You've got to be kidding me." Tears of disappointment in Blake and pain from my leg started flowing. Then a resident from the first floor, hearing the noise, came to check and called an ambulance for me. The examination revealed that I had fractured my right leg. I underwent surgery and had to wear a cast, resulting in a few weeks of hospitalization. During my hospital stay, Blake only visited once, and he didn't come out of concern, but to complain. "Overreacting with surgery and hospitalization for a fracture? You are my slave, so get back and do the housework. Seriously, you even called my office, making others go there and check on you. You cause all this trouble and don't even apologize." He spat out these words and left without listening to anything I had to say. I knew it, but not a word of concern for me came from Blake's mouth. I had called his office because I couldn't reach him on his mobile phone. I needed to inform him since I would be away from home for a while, or else he would be furious. I sighed many times, but life without Blake was stress-free and happy. Determined to divorce him after my discharge, I focused on my treatment. When I returned home, the place was a mess. Apparently, Blake had barely done any housework. Though I expected it, I was surprised he could live in such a state. I still had my cast and couldn't move as I wanted, but I started doing the housework little by little. My company had switched me to remote work, understanding that commuting would be difficult with my injury. A few days after my discharge, while I was on a video conference call, Blake slowly opened the door and entered. "Here I am, starving, and you're just chatting on your PC." I couldn't let my client hear this and glared at Blake. He turned red and shouted, "What's with that look?" I reached for the mouse to mute the mic, but Blake stomped over to me. "Don't you dare ignore me." He kicked my right leg, still in its cast, and even stepped on it with his full weight. "Hey, slave, get started on the food, useless." Blake kept kicking my leg while yelling. My leg not fully healed was kicked, and I let out a groan of pain. Oh!
Causing me trouble and flirting with other men. You still don't understand who you belong to.
Then the person on the video call sternly said to Blake,
Is that all you have to say?
Blake looked surprised and turned to the PC. There was a man on my video call, Mr. Smith, my client.
You are.
Seeing him, Blake started shaking. Mr. Smith was from the company my firm and Blake's firm dealt with, and he was Blake's direct supervisor.
Mr. Smith, are you on a video conference call right now?
Blake asked in a trembling voice. In fact, my company and Blake's company had a business relationship, and Mr. Smith was Blake's direct supervisor. Mr. Smith told Blake,
That's right, but I heard you took caregiving leave to look after your wife, who is struggling with a broken leg. It doesn't seem like it, though.
His voice was filled with anger and disappointment, even through the screen. Yes, Blake had been off work for the past few days, claiming to care for me, but in reality, he was just sleeping at home. He didn't care for me or do any household chores, just lying around watching TV.
No, I've been taking care of her. I just got a bit angry because she was ignoring me and talking to other men.
Blake, sweating, made a flimsy excuse, but Mr. Smith slowly shook his head.
Who would believe such an excuse? Even if we can't interfere with domestic affairs, like how you treat Samantha. Taking caregiving leave under false pretenses is unacceptable.
Mr. Smith glared at Blake and told him to leave the room immediately, as he was disturbing the meeting. Blake, his face pale, left the room as he was told he was a disturbance to the meeting. Mr. Smith and I agreed to have another video conference call on a different day. He strongly warned me about the possibility of Blake getting violent again, and I thanked him as the call ended. After the call, Blake, furious, accused me.
If my reputation suffers because of you, Samantha, I was just about to get a promotion. If I lose that opportunity, it's your fault. Don't drag me down, you slave.
If it were the old me, I would have been terrified of Blake's demeanor and would have just apologized and waited for him to calm down. But the scene I had just witnessed gave me strength. Remembering how Blake trembled in front of Mr. Smith, I felt this was my chance. I let out a loud sigh so Blake could hear and said coldly, Let's get a divorce. I had already found a new place and was planning to bring up divorce today or tomorrow anyway. Blake looked shocked for a moment, but then laughed mockingly.
Where will you go, Samantha? You have no parents or relatives to rely on. You have no choice but to live as my slave. Instead of joking around, go ahead and explain to Mr. Smith that I'm not the bad guy.
This is no joke. I can't live as your slave. I've been prepared for a divorce from you for a long time. I'm ready now, so let's divorce. When I said this calmly, Blake realized I was serious and got angrier.
Don't joke around, Samantha. I will never allow a divorce. Do you think I was kind to you for 2 years for nothing? I finally got a slave. I won't divorce. Want to be kicked again?
If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll send this recording of your abusive language to Mr. Smith. That will do more than just ruin your promotion. Your company is strict about compliance.
What? You recorded me?
Blake was shocked and wide-eyed. Yes, but I won't tell you where I hid the recording device. I don't want you to take it. It's pointless to try to force me to tell you. If you touch me now, I'll call the police immediately. After I firmly declared this, Blake thought for a while and then, as if giving up, blurted out.
Fine. I don't want to be with a jinx like you. Let's divorce. Leave in a few days. I'll stay in a hotel, and when I come back, you better be gone.
After saying this, Blake left the house. I sighed in relief, smiling. Good. I can finally get a divorce. In fact, saying I had recorded it was a lie. It was a spur-of-the-moment fib because Blake was more resistant to divorce than I had anticipated. But the bluff worked, and I was able to get the divorce, which filled me with joy. I packed my things in the next few days, and after the cast was removed, I successfully contracted a new place. After filling out my part of the divorce papers, I left them on the table at home and moved out. Soon after, I received a text from Blake.
I filed the divorce papers. Feels refreshing to be rid of a terrible woman like you, Samantha. Ha ha ha. Just so you know, don't send that recorded audio to Mr. Smith or anyone else.
I didn't reply, but blocked Blake and set my phone to reject his calls. And so, my short marriage with Blake came to an end. Blake probably just wanted a slave who would do everything he wanted. What does he think people are? He probably thought that without parents, I would just obey him and not run away once we were married. During our relationship, I never noticed Blake's true nature. If only I had realized before getting married. I was disgusted with my inability to judge men. I thought I'd had enough of romance for a while. 3 months had passed since my divorce from Blake was finalized. My leg had completely healed, and I was able to commute to work every day. That day, as usual, I finished my work and left the office. Then, a short walk from the office, someone called out,
Samantha?
Surprised, I turned around to see a man with a pale face. Blake? It took a moment to recognize him, but it was unmistakably Blake. He used to be healthy looking, slightly overweight, but now he was emaciated. Regardless of his appearance, I didn't want to see Blake again, so I felt disgusted that he had ambushed me. Did you ambush me? Please stop, it's annoying.
But you won't answer my texts or calls. I had no choice but to wait here. I don't even know where you live now. I just wanted to see you so badly.
Blake's voice was different from before, lacking energy and sounding weak. So what do you want? You must have an important reason to see me like this. I have nothing to do with you, though. To my cold question, Blake, his face contorting as if he might cry, said,
Help me.
Huh? Why should I help you? No, thank you. I said that and tried to leave, but Blake desperately tried to stop me.
Please, just listen to me,
he pleaded. I had no intention of listening and walked away, but Blake started talking on his own.
You know, after we divorced, I remarried a young woman named Madison.
Apparently, after our divorce, Blake's promotion fell through, and he met Madison, a woman in her 20s, while drinking at a pub. Madison was incredibly cute, and they quickly started dating and got married within a month.
But after we married, Madison changed. She became extremely possessive and emotionally unstable. If I try to instruct her, she cries hysterically. I can't handle her.
Blake, with a vacant look in his eyes, continued. To that, I couldn't help but smile and say, Oh, changing after marriage, just like you. A match made in heaven. I'm glad you found a suitable wife.
It's not good at all. She's constantly texting and calling me, even at work. If I don't reply or answer, she cries and gets angry, and then suspects me of cheating. She even showed up at my workplace.
Even as he spoke, Blake's mobile phone kept ringing.
You know, I thought Madison would be just like you, always obedient. Madison also said she was estranged from her parents, but what a mistake. I can't live with such a hysterical woman.
Blake intended to make Madison his slave, too. I felt nothing but contempt for Blake's incorrigible nature. Blake, your way of thinking is despicable. What do you think women are? You've gotten your just desserts. That's karma for you. Is that all? I'm leaving now.
Wait a minute. I realize now that I prefer an obedient woman like you. Let's get back together. I can't live without you, Samantha.
Anger rose in me at Blake's delusional words. Don't be ridiculous. I stayed with you only while I prepared for a new place and moving expenses. I'd just avoid provoking you to not get hit or suspected. I never considered myself your slave. Who would ever reconcile with someone like you? As I shouted this, a woman came running towards us saying, "Found you!" Blake's face froze upon seeing her.
Madison.
It seemed this woman was the notorious Madison. She was indeed cute, but her eyes were bloodshot. "Blake, why aren't you answering my calls? I always tell you to answer immediately."
She screamed in a shrill voice. How did you know I was here?
Blake asked, trembling. "I put a GPS on your mobile phone, so I always know where you are."
Madison replied nonchalantly. When did you put a GPS in my phone?
Ignoring Blake's pale-faced questioning, Madison glared at me. "Who are you? What are you to Blake?"
As I hesitated, about to respond, Madison pressed Blake.
"Are you cheating on me? Answer me."
Blake looked at me pleadingly, but I had an idea. Actually, this man was hitting on me, and I was troubled. Blake looked shocked at my words. But it was a mild revenge for what he had done.
"What, Blake? What are you doing?"
Madison's anger intensified, and she menacingly approached Blake. Blake tried desperately to explain. No, it's just a misunderstanding. I wasn't hitting on her. But Madison wouldn't listen. Then Madison snatched the mobile phone from Blake's jeans pocket and quickly reset it. All the data was erased, and Blake, in a voice of despair, said, "No way, that phone had all my contacts for work."
"You're the one at fault for hitting on her. No more allowance for you,"
Madison shouted, pulling a stunned Blake away from the scene. After that, Blake became famous at his company for frequent suspicion-filled calls from Madison and her occasional intrusion being stopped by security. Tired from his marriage, his work performance suffered, and he was eventually demoted, as I heard from Mr. Smith, Blake's boss. Even in his new position, the frequent calls from Madison continued, making Blake's new environment uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I was approached about a promotion to section chief after a project I proposed at work received good feedback. Although I was tired of love, I was recently invited to dinner by the hospital director where I did my rehab. I don't know if it'll lead to a romance, but I want to carefully judge this time and seize my happiness.